Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about the brand new Netflix original movie Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Now this movie of course is a science fiction movie, and I believe it was originally pitched as a Star Wars movie by Zack Snyder. Now Zack Snyder of course is the director, but I believe he also had a hand in writing this movie as well. I don't think he wrote it completely on his own, but I think he had most of the creative choices, which means he basically had the most power over the story and over the direction and all that stuff. And so this movie essentially follows a character known as Cora, and Cora is a farmer who lives on a farming planet, and that is basically how they survive throughout the year. Their survival depends on their farming, and they are very good at it and very successful at it, but only successful to the point where they're capable of feeding themselves and maybe having a little bit left over, but nothing too crazy. Now, as the story progresses, you learn that Cora actually has a little bit more of a backstory as well. She has been working with, I guess, what you would call the bad guys, or the sort of like the Galactic Empire, the really bad people of this movie. And the main villain was a character known as Atticus Noble, who was portrayed by Ed Skrein, I believe is how you pronounce his name, or Skrein, Skrein, and he does a really good job. And I will say that he is probably the strength of this movie. The best part about this movie was the bad guys. There's a couple of bad guys sort of sprinkled in this movie, but essentially Atticus is the true main villain of the story, and he does a really good job at being a villain. You know, you really do hate his character in this movie, and you are definitely looking forward to justice being served to him, and to him, having it out with Cora and her team. And so, in terms of visuals, the movie looks really good. Visually, the movie is absolutely stunning. But in terms of the story and the writing, and even the characters for that matter, I never really found myself connecting to any of the characters whatsoever. And so I would say, even in terms of the story, even though it was a compelling story when you're just reading the synopsis or when you're looking at the trailers, it looks like a compelling story. Once you actually see it all, really, I felt that the story really lacked, and it was really basic and almost to the point where it was uninteresting. I really felt myself not being able to connect to any of the characters, but then also I felt like the movie was very generic, the story, and not only that, but this is only half of the story, so you spend 2 hours and 10 minutes, or a little over 2 hours with these characters, and I feel like where they are at the end, but where they are at the beginning and where the movie ends, there's really not really a whole lot that happens. Literally for the first hour and 10 minutes, I think it was roughly, the first hour and 10 minutes is literally just Cora going around and recruiting, different people to sort of go to war with this bad guy and whatnot. So she's building this team, and she's literally doing that for over half of the movie. And you do get a scatter fight scene in here and there, and you do get a couple fantastical elements to the movie, such as monsters and beasts and all these different types of space areas and planets and all that stuff. But ultimately, I just felt like the story really fell flat, and even the editing a lot of times I felt was not really all that great. Which I guess you could sort of blame Zack Snyder for that. I guess really the editors are still technically being directed by the director, but like for example, the use of slow motion in this movie. There's a lot of slow motion here, and for the first couple of shots, I thought it was really good, but then it got to the point where it was almost predictable. It's like you can almost tell, okay, well, we're getting an action sequence, which means a slow motion sequence is coming, so I don't feel like they utilized that very well. It was just over the top, way too much slow motion. They could have easily cut, probably half of their slow motion scenes out, and whatnot. And then, like I said earlier, where the story ends is really, they were not really any further ahead than where the story began. In fact, I would say they might actually be in a lot. The story might have ended in a way that was, maybe maybe would make the whole story feel almost irrelevant. It's almost like we just watched 2 hours, of these characters going through everything that they went through for almost nothing, for almost like there's no reason, because the conclusion really, there was really no big, no big impacts by the finale. There's nothing really changed, I guess we could say, without actually spoiling the movie. Now, Charlie Hunnam in this movie, he's in this movie. I thought he did a pretty good job with what he was given. Dejman Hounsu, I believe is how you pronounce his name, he's in here as well, portraying a character known as Titus. And so there's a bunch of great actors in here as well. Ray Fisher, Michael Huseman, Anthony Hopkins does a voice for one of the characters, and whatnot. So, like I said, the movie has a great cast, and visually it looks really good. But I did feel myself just honestly, I kind of felt myself being bored. There were times when I was just like thinking that certain scenes were dragging on and on and on. They were telling us stuff that I wasn't really interested about. You learn as the movie goes on, you learn a little bit about Cora's past, and it's all about her sort of being in this military and sort of, working with this evil empire. You learn that she was a part of that group, and I just felt that part of the movie was really uninteresting. I was really interested in the farmers and that farming planet, but we get very little about that. So I was kind of hoping to see more of that life as opposed to the Empire life. But I guess they had to sort of give her some form of backstory. But like I said, I just wasn't able to connect with Cora. So even seeing all of her backstory, I just couldn't. I really just didn't care about the character. I think more so, and the most interesting character that I was attached to was the nemesis or the villain Atticus, and he was the villain. So as much as I found him interesting, I also hated him. I couldn't wait for him to lose, or hopefully lose and whatnot. And so if I had to put a number on Rebel Moon, personally, I think I'd probably give this one either a 50 or 55%. I'm sort of on the fence because the movie overall really didn't do anything for me. I didn't love it or hate it, which would be 50%. So I'll probably stick with 50% because, I've been trying to sort of grasp at stuff to be able to say that I liked it a little bit more than what I didn't. But honestly, I don't think I did. I just found this movie to be very boring, with a very generic story, with a lot of characters that I just couldn't connect with. And like I said, when you see the transition through each act 1, 2, and 3, it really felt like there was no real true consequences, and it really felt like the movie didn't go anywhere. And when part 2 comes, I just feel like it's going to be most likely very similar to part 1, and so I'm not really that excited for the sequel, and I probably won't even watch it. So anyways, folks, that's my review for Rebel Moon. Let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you'd like to tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click that subscribe button, and until the next one.